Hi everyone, I'm Associate Professor Samantha Currie and I'm the Director of the Indigenous Equity and Diversity Portfolio here at Monash Law. I'm also the coordinator of the Journeys to Excellence programme, and I manage that programme with our fabulous teaching associate and barrister, Reiko Okazaki. Hi, Reiko.
Hi, Sammy.
And we thought today we would share some of our experiences of our time as law students and also talk to you a little bit about the benefits of the Journeys to Excellence programme. And so it would be great, Reiko, to set the scene if you could tell me where you went to law school, when, and a little bit about your experience.
Great. So I'm originally from Japan, and so I studied law there for my undergrad, but it's a civil law system. It's completely different from here. And then I went to America for my master's. So I was at UCLA School of Law. And I think you asked when. So that would be in 2008, 2009, around that time. So if you know basketball, Russell Westbrook was there, Kevin Love was there. Great time to be at UCLA. Yes, and then after I moved to Australia, I did have to study a bit of Australian law as well.
Okay,
yes.
So a really interesting journey. So I went to law school in the University of Liverpool in the UK, and I started in the year 2000. And then I actually stayed for 23 years. So I only left Liverpool in 2023 and came to Monash Law then. So I've had the experience of having a really long time at one institution and then switching to another. And I ended up staying at Liverpool to do a PhD, and then I became a lecturer there. But I would really emphasise that when I first started as a first-year law student, I never would have imagined that that would be the path for me, because I found the shock of law school to be a pretty big one. None of my family had been to university before. I didn't know anybody in law whatsoever. And I think I was really, understandably now, naive about what law involved. So I think I had assumed that most law, if not all, was criminal law. So I found it a shock to be confronted with the compulsory units like contract and equity and torts. This was, a big shock to my system. So I never would have expected from the start that I would end up staying in law. I actually tried to transfer during first year to psychology, but they didn't have any places. So I think it's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about trying to ease that transition to law school, because I have that first-hand experience of being quite confronted by that transition myself.
Did you, how were your marks your first year?
They were not great. They were not awful, not brilliant. They were pretty much in the middle. And I think, again, that was another shock. As somebody that had, done well in school, even though it was a particularly, maybe the best way to describe my school was a bit challenging, but nevertheless, I had always done well academically.
Yes.
So then that was another adjustment to manage as well.
That's
of being, not at the top, but having to really work and feeling a bit unsure about how to go about, learning law as opposed to learning other subjects. Thinking back to your first year as a law student.
Yes.
Can you remember your feelings during that time, how you found the initial period of settling in?
Sure. I think, at UCLA, we were all just excited to be there. And I was studying for my electives things like critical race theory, which, it's become a hot word recently. But, back then it was still, not really in the common lexicon yet. And so we had all the pioneering academics who were in that field. It was really amazing. And so we would have never dreamed of missing class, really. We were just so psyched to be there, and everyone came prepared, and we had really interesting discussions. So yes, it was kind of exhilarating, and obviously it was a lot of work as well, but it didn't really feel like it was that hard. Yeah.
were there any particular moments where, like thinking about the study of law itself,
Yes.
where you felt that things, rules, laws clicked into place? Do you remember any particular
it's interesting.
times?
I wouldn't say there was a magic moment, but it's true that it's obviously a steep learning curve at first, and I think of it almost as like learning a new language, where in the beginning, you're not going to be very good, but the things that you have to keep practicing, and that's for us. Now that we're teaching in law school, our classes are where the students practice, and it's a safe place for students to apply the law, and so that's why I always tell my students that it's so important to come to class and participate, because that's how you become proficient in this in this pretty much new language, which is law. And it's a whole new way of thinking and expressing yourself and communicating. So I think that yes, I think in the beginning it can be a bit awkward, and that's why I also tell the students not to worry too much about your marks per se. Obviously, you want to build upon the feedback you receive, but I think you shouldn't be too worried about nailing everything from the beginning, because it is about the journey.
I really like that analogy of like the language. So I remember the end of first year. Marks were maybe slightly better than they had been in the middle of first year. And I think it was things slowly clicked into place. Sometimes I would struggle to understand concepts in lectures and tutorials. And I do remember one moment towards the end of first year where I had really looked back at the work throughout the whole year. And there were a few things that finally clicked into place, seeing the connections between the different topics.
Yes, and that's so important, isn't it?
And so there were a few moments like that as I went through second year. Things started to build slowly. But yes, there was never one moment. It was a slow process for me.
Was there someone in particular that you met that made it easier?
There were some lecturers, particularly, I think, once I could move away from the compulsory units and start to dip into electives, where I started to see how the breadth of the law could really bring in some connections to things that I felt were important in relation to society. So starting to see the connection between how law can make societal change. And then there were lecturers that were teaching those types of electives that I really found gave a bit more time and encouragement. If there was any advice you could go back and give yourself at the start of your law studies, what would it be?
I think just to say to be kind to yourself, because we do try to do a lot in law school, and it is a really tricky balance, because on the one hand it is really important to be involved and for example to do some studies in the clinical sphere, so that you get some application, or if you have some free time to go into the courts and see the law in action, mooting, extracurriculars. And so all of this is really important, and you do need some of that in addition to your studies. But then also your studies do take up a lot of time as well, because in addition to the contact hours, you have so much reading and writing. And so, I think we definitely need to also have some free time. And so kind of scheduling all of that in and not getting overwhelmed. I don't know if there was enough emphasis on that when I started out. Yeah,
that sounds really familiar.
So if you could go back in time, what would you tell your first year self about law school?
I would say that even if you don't think it's the case, more people than you realize feel the same way. A lot of people I now know feel like they're winging it.
Yes.
But it doesn't always look like that.
Yes. It's like adulting. We're all in the same boat.
And I really see it now as a staff member when I'm speaking to students that a lot of the feelings, emotions, experiences are really similar.
Yes.
But they don't always know, which is completely understandable because we don't go around sort of emphasizing when we're feeling a little bit unsure.
Sure.
So I would really want to emphasize that to a younger version of me, that, you know, a lot of people feel the same. And maybe to be more confident in owning that uncertainty rather than feeling that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It is part of the, it's really part of the deal.
Thinking about Journeys to Excellence then, why do you think that our program is a valuable thing for law students to do?
Yes, because I think that the idea is that we try to help with, you know, connections to each other, peers, connections to the, the methodology that I spoke about before in terms of, you know, especially in my tutorials, we focus a lot on the study skills, which are really important for, you know, obviously the actual law units and pretty much the whole degree, the law degree, but also a lot of the skills are transferable to the workplace in terms of collaborating on a team, communication skills, and some of them are just kind of life skills in terms of organizing your time. And so, you know, so I think these skills are really important in order to really succeed academically, but also to just, you know, stay well in terms of a well-being point of view as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Reiko. And what is your favourite part of the programme, if you had to pick one?
Yeah, well, I think the mentoring, which started this year, sounds really great. And I've heard some really great anecdotes about how some students have, you know, met up with their mentors for a few times and have had kind of hours-long chats, some of them. And yeah, so I think the mentoring sounds like a great aspect.
For me, it's about community and reassurance, I think. So community in terms of, you know, we've all had a few years where we've been sort of forcibly away from one another.
Yep.
So the programme is a good chance to, in a more informal setting than in your normal classes, that you can, you know, connect with us, connect with each other, your fellow students and peers, and hopefully try to discuss some of those challenges around learning law, about fitting into university life, or about, you know, future careers in a more informal, less pressured way.
Yes.
And then, you know, reassurance in terms of, you know, like some of the issues we've talked about, how a lot of these experiences are shared. And if we can talk through, you know, how to approach some of those challenges together, then that I think can only be a positive thing.
Definitely, definitely. It's really hard when you're kind of rushing off to the next class to, you know, to actually sit down and talk about anything other than the actual unit. So, yeah. And
I think added to that, you know, a lot, as we know, a lot of classes you're in sort of, you know, big rooms with lots of people, and this is a way to discuss these things in a, you know, more intimate environment sometimes, not with a huge, you know, number of people where you might feel that all eyes are on you when you're talking about things.
Okay. And what's your favorite feature of the Journeys to Excellence program?
I'd say two things. I think, one, I really value the insights we get when we have guest speakers come in, because I think they can be really instructive in demonstrating how journeys through law are very varied. So, you know, when we start, we might have a vision in mind that we're going to be a practicing lawyer. But I think when we have guest speakers that can speak to multiple different careers or different pathways through those careers, that can be really insightful.
That's right.
And then I would also echo on the mentoring element. I've had some wonderful conversations with my mentees, and I know that other colleagues have as well.
Great. Yes, and yeah, and it's true that these skills that the students are learning are transferable to, you know, not just practice of law or even, you know, academics, but you know, really any kind of career, yeah, in law.
And I've got one more question.
Sure.
What would you say to any students who are, you know, thinking, have looked at the Journey to Excellence program, but aren't quite sure they've got the time or aren't quite sure whether it's for them? Is there any particular
Yes.
message?
Yes, well, I think, you know, give it a shot. You know, it's there's really nothing to lose in terms of commitment. You know, you don't have to attend all of the tutorials. There's really no pressure, and so. Yeah, I hope everyone kind of checks it out and sees if it's for them or not.
So I would see this program as a real sort of value added to what you're already doing.
Yeah.
So I would really say, come and just try us out.
Yeah.
You might want to dip in and out of different sessions. But rather than viewing it as a you know, a chunk of time out of your week, I would really see this program as some time, not too much time, but a little bit of time that you can spend boosting your skills and confidence that you can take into all of the other areas,
Yes.
not just for this year, but for all of your time here at Monash Law as you move on to different units, different phases of study. So I would say, come and try us out. And also, you know, we're really open to feedback on
Yes.
the program.
We're quite flexible.
We can adapt, you know, because we are a sort of optional program that you can do. We can respond to requests,
Yes.
and we're not tied into a particular curriculum or anything like that. So, yeah, please also, you know, keep those channels of communication open because we're really, really willing to respond to those kinds of comments.
Yes, definitely. And we see, I think, in our teaching that, you know, some students, even in their kind of final years or penultimate years, sometimes that you can always use these boosters on these skills. So yeah, if you know, if people can join this program and get the basics, the foundations from the get-go, it will, as you say, will save you time in the end.
Thanks, Reiko. It's been great to hear your perspective and then also to hear more about your journey into law as well.
And yours, Sammy?
So if you would like to give our Journey to Excellence program a go, we would love to see you at some of our sessions. So please consider coming along soon.